To talk a bit more about the life and legacy of Jerry Lewis, I'm joined on the set by France 24's film editor, Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hi,
one thing that I don't think is quite even clear enough in that piece is how much the French, surprisingly you might say, love. There's no words to express the love they had for Jerry Lewis. Why?
I've been boning up on this, and I was unaware that none other than Jean-Luc Godard had written 60 years ago that Jerry Lewis was a more important comic talent than Charlie Chaplin. So that gives you something. What's interesting here in France is there are two serious film magazines, one more serious than the other. You've probably heard of Cahiers du Cinéma. The other one is Positif, which was founded by people who were very interested in surrealism and had a sense of humor. And one of the very few entertainers that they agree was brilliant and worth watching is Jerry Lewis. So, you know, to bring those two eternal rivals together is really something. In Le Figaro, the newspaper today, their film critic said that, well, if God is French, when Jerry Lewis arrives, he'll be greeted on a red carpet with all the fanfare. And if God is American, he's going to pounce on this guy with nothing special and say, okay, I've been waiting. Tell me why the French think you're a genius.
And it's interesting because Jerry Lewis, many people think of him just as a slapstick artist, but he actually was a prolific filmmaker, a director, and he actually, you were telling me, did something that changed filmmaking for everyone.
Indeed, he did. As early as 1960, on one of his own films. You know how in movies when there's a director and he says, cut, print it, well, what that means is film has been running through the camera and they have to run off and develop it with chemicals in a lab and then put it through a projector and find out whether they got the shot they needed or not, if they've lost the actors, the location. This is terrible. So what Jerry Lewis thought of when they were in the beginnings of videotape and video and monitors, he thought, what if we had a monitor connected to what the cameraman is seeing, and then the director can watch the live performance, but also see what the camera is recording. So there was no video that he could, you know, replay, but it grew into that. And now what we call video assist is used all over the world because it's like if you take a photo with your cell phone, you want to be able to check immediately whether you got the shot or not. But before that, you had to wait till it came back from the lab, maybe a week, you know.
Right at the beginning of his career, I always remember Jerry Lewis as being partnered up with Dean Martin, the whole dynamic, the duo between them. Was it hard for him when he broke out solo and tried to start his own career?
Well, apparently, I mean, the two of them were wildly entertaining together. Dean Martin was the suave, handsome ladies' man, a very good singer, very good comic timing, and a pretty good dramatic actor, too, but, you know, comic. And Jerry Lewis's persona was just the guy who drove him crazy, interrupted him, was childish, and in fact, he'd often said the secret to his success, Jerry Lewis, was that he never grew up from being a 9-year-old in his own head. But Martin and Lewis were so famous that until Elvis and the Beatles came along, I don't think there was a nationwide phenomenon where everybody was talking about them, wanted to see them, and yet it was very hard to describe what it was about them. People would just say, you have to go see them. It was, as they said in that report, a lot of improvisation, a lot of understanding each other's personas. So they split up in 1956, but we still think of Martin and Lewis, or Lewis and Martin, and went their separate ways. But Jerry Lewis, he did everything. He did television. He wrote a very respected book about filmmaking. He taught at, I think it was USC or UCLA, the art of filmmaking. He knew how to direct. He wrote. He produced. So that's another reason the French loved him, besides a penchant for slapstick. The French just love when people fall down. It was also that he was an auteur. He did everything. He was the consummate film professional, and he had an understanding of what children enjoy in film. I can still remember being 10 years old in the basement watching a Jerry Lewis movie on TV and my mom looking down at me with the same look that people who don't understand Trump supporters and saying, how can you watch that? And I didn't have the presence of mind, because I wasn't yet a mature urban sophisticate, to say, because I'm 10 years old, that's why, and it's funny.
Just very briefly to wrap up, Jerry Lewis also left behind a big legacy as a philanthropist.
You could say that. Apparently his shenanigans and his devotion to the cause raised more than $2 billion in donations over several decades to combat muscular dystrophy, and he was also the patron who got that same telethon tradition started here in France.
Lisa, thank you so much for that tribute to Jerry Lewis, a comedian who died aged 91 in Las Vegas. Lisa, thank you so much.